Welcome to the Love Shouldn't Hurt Philly podcast, where we share stories, hope, and healing.
Welcome back. Good evening and happy Tuesday, Christina's favorite day of the week. I'm so excited to continue this series with you guys, but just a quick reminder for all who are watching. If you or someone you know is dealing with any form of domestic violence, could be a family, a friend, a foe, it takes 2 seconds to give them the number at the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. I'm super excited to have our second series session tonight of What's Love Got to Do with It? But tonight, I think we're focusing on something that I'm sure that a lot of people are dealing with right now. There's a lot of things that happen in life that we do not realize are grief. And sometimes we don't realize that those big griefs are what kind of hurt us from giving the love that we want to give to those who are surrounding us, whether it's a relationship, a family member, even a friendship. So tonight, I'm super excited, you guys. I am sharing this platform tonight with a very knowledgeable Latina. I'm telling you, all the women I bring on here got degrees and they know what they're doing. So tonight I welcome the amazing Dr. Judy Cruz-Ransom. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing me on, and you are amazing as well.
Oh, so. Thank you, babe. Thank you so much. So listen, tell them about yourself. What is it that you do so they know that you got that knowledge?
So I'm Dr. Judy Cruz-Ransom. As Christina said, I've known her for forever. I wear a lot of hats, right? So I am the COO at Aspira Inc. of Pennsylvania. I've been doing that since September now, so I enjoy working there, working within the community. I am also a professor at Community College of Philadelphia. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a caregiver, I'm a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and you have a very strong background in trauma and educating folks on trauma. So that's another reason why we wanted to bring you on tonight, just so that people know you know what you're talking about. I like to make that very clear that we don't just bring anybody up on here. We make sure that we bring people who know what they're talking about. So tonight we're talking about grief, and I think it's super important to kind of give us kind of like a broad definition of what grief is, right? Because I think oftentimes people believe that grief is just, I lost my friend, I lost my mother, I lost in death, right? They always think grief is just, associated with death. Yeah. And I know that it's not. There's so many things that you can deal with in life that are grief. So kind of give us an idea of what you believe grief is.
Sure. So I think grief is just a natural response to loss. But as you said, people mostly attribute that to death and dying. But grief can be anything. It could be the loss of a job. It could be a loss of status, right? Yeah. When my mom had to move with me, she no longer was independent. She grieved that independence, right? Yeah. A job, status, my son is 23, so eventually he's going to move, right? When we're empty nesters, we're going to grieve that relationship with my son, right? So it could be anything. It could be growth, even in a positive way. I'm going to be super happy for my son when he decides to move, but I'm going to grieve that, right? And even when you do things that are positive, oh yeah, I'm getting this new job, I might still grieve my other job, right? So your status, sometimes you grieve, anything. It's not just about sadness and death. It's about change and the loss of something, right? You can grieve your independence. You can grieve your health. Like, it's anything that's changed. Like, how do I deal with this now? That's grief to me, the loss of something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned so many different things, right? Because my daughter's home, right? But I'm a single mother. I love my baby, and everybody that knows me knows that we're like connected, like, right? Me and Alina are like this all the time. And I feel like I'm already going through forms of grief with her, right? Because I was so used to it always being just me and Alina, right? And now she has a boyfriend and she has her own car. So I barely see her, right? She's at work, she's at school, she's with the boyfriend. So when she's not home and I'm by myself and I'm sitting at home, I feel a huge loss because I'm like, wow, we raise our children so that they can be productive citizens and they can move on in life. And like you said, I'm super proud of her accomplishments and that she's doing these things, but it's such a grieving period for me because I feel like, wow, I raised my baby and she's going to leave me soon.
That's right.
And I think that that's a great segue into realizing that grief can come in so many different forms.
It does. It does.
How does grief affect us emotionally, mentally, and physically? You could choose one or do all three.
No, I think all of them are important, right? So emotionally, you're talking about sadness, anger, anxiety, right? Yeah. You might even be staying up at night and not recognize or attribute that to some loss because sometimes we don't even realize it. We might think, okay, she was my friend. She doesn't talk to me no more. It's no big deal. But you might really be grieving that relationship. Absolutely. As you said, you are happy for your daughter, but she still has less time for you because of work, because of her boyfriend, all of those things. So guilt, loneliness, all of that stuff. When I think about mentally, trouble focusing, right? Memory issues, all of those things, that's overthinking things, right? People don't normally attribute that. They, again, we, with loss and grieving, we try to normalize things. So we think, okay, this is normal, when indeed it might not be. Yeah. So I think that it's important that we listen to our bodies, right? I think mentally you can feel exhausted, right? Oh, wow. Like all I did was go to work and I feel exhausted. You need to listen to, where is that coming from? Is there some loss that you suffered? Sleep changes, appetite changes, stomach issues, right? Sometimes we don't even recognize our intuition, that our body tells a story, right? Our Body Keeps a Score is a great book if anybody ever wants to read it, but it's that idea that your body gives you signs that something's wrong. So I think all of that, is attributed or can be attributed to grief.
That's wild that you said that. It's wild in the retrospect that throughout the years, and whether it's from my career or running Love Shouldn't Hurt, or just being who I am, right? Overly committed. I'm overly committed, if you know me, right? I get involved in way too many things, stress myself out. But I've always been that way since college. I've always wanted to be the president of this, the leader of this, right? I've always wanted to do anything, and then it wears me out, right? So whatever the case may be, that has, and I attribute this to myself as well, that has made me not show up for people the way that I should. It's made me not give to friendships as much as I should. And you say that, and it blew me away, because there's two different friendships that I suffered a great deal from, losses from, right? One of them, it's funny because one of them I say, I don't miss it at all. The abusive felt more abusive. The relationship felt more like an abusive friendship. It didn't feel comforting. It didn't bring me happiness. So I didn't grieve that loss. But there was one that tremendously affected me. The fact that after so many years, just our friendship kind of broke apart. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. It was all I thought about constantly.
Absolutely. Overthink or think about what could I have done different. And guess what? Sometimes friends are there for a season or a reason, and then sometimes we have to move on. But there is that grief, right? Yeah, whether you contributed to it, whether you expected it, or even sometimes it's mutual. Yeah. We're not compatible anymore, so we're going our separate ways. You're still going to feel that loss, especially when it's been a friend for years. Like, you can't just say, okay, that's it. And your mouth might be saying that, but your body's feeling something different. Yeah. Absolutely. Even when you're ending an abusive relationship, you are still grieving the good times, right? Absolutely. And the hope of, wow, that could have been different, right? Because we always think we're going to change somebody. And let me tell you, if you hear nothing else, you cannot change a person. You can only change yourself and your reaction to other people, but you cannot change a person. So if that's the situation you're in, start, thinking about the only person you can control in a relationship is yourself. So think about like anything. This is a loss. What have I learned from it? How can I move on? And take care of yourself is all I can say. Yeah.
Can someone be grieving and not realize that they're grieving?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Our brains are set up to protect us, right? So if something hurts too much, our brain can do that for a little while, but then we have to move on. So moving on sometimes is normalizing that feeling. I'm okay. I have to be okay. So sometimes, you might not even realize that you're grieving. Because again, you could be thinking this is a good thing. Oh, I got a good job, right? Mm-hmm. I'm leaving my job at McDonald's and I'm going to go somewhere really nice, but don't realize that McDonald's might have been part of your life for a while. Yeah. And you have friends and relationships. And so you might not even realize that even in something good, I'm getting a better job, there's still that grief of the loss of what you used to do. And so you might not recognize that. Yeah. So jobs, friendships, again, because we only attribute it to death and dying. Yeah. So aside from that, I can't call this grieving. Yeah. And you can, like I said, even the example of my mom moving with me, she grieved her independence. She had her own house, had to get rid of all her stuff. Absolutely. Like, that's huge. How could I tell my mom that she wasn't grieving?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think people realize that as much as they should. There's so many life circumstances that we go through and then we move away from, and we don't realize that it's grief, right? People we can continue to repeat the same thing the whole night. People think someone dies, that's it, that's grief. Right. But they don't realize there's so many moments in life. And the crazy thing is, I say that, and it's probably why I wanted to do this topic, right? Because I think that I've gone through so many phases of grief throughout the past year. Yeah. And I think it's because of my daughter now being in school and seeing where she's at, right? I say it all the time. I think I said it in the last show, and I say it a lot to a lot of people that, and all the time, people are probably sick of me saying it now, but I've said it the most in the past year. There's less time ahead than there is behind me.
Absolutely.
And I have stayed up literally, even just recently, crying about that.
Absolutely.
Right? Because I grieved the life I thought I wanted. Yeah. I wanted to be married. I wanted to have a husband. I wanted to have this like profound life. And I'm like, damn, I'm going to be 46, right? And I see people celebrating 30-year anniversaries. And I'm like, I'm never going to have that. I'm never going to have this 30-year relationship, right? My sisters are in 26, 27 years of their marriages. And I grieve that so much, right? And as a single woman continuing to be single, I am constantly grieving that. And I love being single because I have my independence. I take care of myself. I do what I have to do for myself. I'm a well-established woman. But I also am like, damn, sometimes I don't want to be strong. Sometimes I want to have that person.
I can hear that because as a little kid, we practice, oh my God, from Sweet 16 on, this is what my wedding's going to look like, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Even when you say, okay, I'm okay with being single, there's still that part of you that as a little girl, that was the dream to get married, to have kids, to whatever. Absolutely. So absolutely. And I mean, as you said, we're on the tail end, right? Yeah. I'm 53 now, so I'm over that hill. Yeah. You know, even thinking about retirement, which should be an amazing thing, is like preparing for that, like what would I do with my time?
Absolutely.
Because I, like you, am super busy and I do so many things. So absolutely. It's all of that. And people don't allow for that. The other thing is that people think that there's a certain timeline, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You stop talking to her, you need to get over it. No, I need to do whatever I need to do to make sure that I'm okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it's a job, whether it's retirement, whether it's my child leaving. Society sets really unrealistic expectations, even when it comes to the traditional grief. The traditional grief is dying, right? Imagine my mom is my everything. And if something happens to her, God bless her, the job tells me you get 3 days to mourn her.
Yeah.
If that doesn't speak in volumes, what we think about people and grief, I don't know what else does. The lady that gave birth to me, that raised me, you think that in 3 days I'm going to be able to go right back to work?
Yeah.
And even for your child, I can't even imagine. And so it just shows you how society just wants you to get over it. Yeah. And you notice even with grief, with any grief, everybody's there for 1 week.
Yeah.
Then after that, the calls stop, the food stop,
the
visits stop.
Absolutely.
So we are a society that we just want you to get over it. And when you stay in that, because that's what you need, we don't know how to support you through that.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, I'm not going to Christina's because she's just going to be talking about whatever happened. Yeah. As opposed to saying, wow, you know, how can I be there for you? What can I do for you? Yeah. We're just not ready for that.
That's a good segue. That's a good segue, right? Because I think, so we said tonight we're going to talk about grief and how it affects someone's ability to love, right?
Sure.
And I think that that's such a great segue, right? Because we need somebody to show up for us. We need people to be there for us.
That's right.
When the aftermath is done, right? And I think people find it difficult when they're grieving to allow those people in, right? And let's segue right into why we're really talking tonight, right? So grief and relationships.
Yep.
How can someone's unresolved grief affect their ability to give and receive love?
So I think that if you don't do the work to make sure that you are okay, then you're not accepting that love. You don't think you deserve that love. Mm-hmm. You are scared, you know, depending on what grief you suffered, right? Yeah. If you suffered the loss of a relationship, then I'm going to put this wall up because I'm not going through this feeling again. This feels horrible and I don't want this to happen again.
Which is where I'm at.
Right.
But go ahead.
But absolutely. And you carry that. And then oftentimes too, the person that we're with now suffers from what we did with the past person. Because anything that resembles that pain, I'm going to put a stop to it. I'm going to put my wall up. Here, they might be asking me something nice and already, you're showing me signs of the other one. Yeah. So we live that way, right? And part of that is good because I don't want to go through that again. I
want to go through it again.
But oftentimes it's not. We're labeling them based on our past experiences because we haven't grieved, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we get out of relationship, get into another one too quick, right? I mentor women all the time. Like, you need to stop. Figure out what you like. There's so many women that are invested in relationships, don't even know their own favorite food, don't know what movies they like because it's all around their kids, their spouse. And I'm like, you need to stop. Yes. What do you like? And people don't take the time to do that. Even within a relationship, I've been married, thank God, going on 29 years. And
you're one of those.
Yes, I'm one of those. I'm I'm one of those. But my husband and I do a good job at still connecting with our friends, still doing things that we like. He does something on a regular, bowling. I can't stand it. I've never been to one bowling game.
I love it. It's so much fun.
That's like paint drying to me. But I mean, it's his way of his outlet, his thing. They think he's single because I've never showed up to one tournament. But again, that's our way of still being us. I have to be Judy before I can be Ernest's wife, before I can be Eli's mom, before I can be Carmen's daughter. I have to be Judy. And some people don't feel comfortable within their skin because they haven't healed whatever that trauma is. Some people haven't even named it yet, let alone work towards healing. Yeah. So if you don't recognize it as trauma, how do you heal from that?
Right.
Yeah.
Damn, that's like a double-fisted job.
Listen.
I don't know which one to talk about first. I'm gonna try one first, right? So we'll start with me because I always say I have to work with my issues before anybody else's issues, right? So I don't think it's an issue, but I think what you said clearly, I run this organization. We know that I've been through some stuff, right? But I've been in therapy and I've been working through it and I feel great now at who I am as a person. And it's funny because recently I've said that being in therapy, learning what, my triggers are, learning what impacted me the most and pushed me away from dating. I've also learned what I deserve, what I will no longer tolerate. So there's a lot of good out of what's come from this because it's allowed me to heal from things, right? But I do feel like there is a part of me that has that grief of how bad I was treated in the past. So you're right. If someone ghosts me or someone makes me feel like I'm less than, then I immediately am like, oh, back to not dating. I'm done with men. And it's not
There's that wall up.
Yes. And I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I know that there are so many amazing men in the world, right? But I immediately am like, retreat. Like we are not I don't want to feel the disappointment. I don't want to feel the sadness because that takes over your stomach, man. You cannot control that feeling. Like you feel like crap. So that's one way, right? But in another sense, these are things I've experienced. I've experienced trying to love people and be in relationships with people who are still dealing with losses of grief and like grief as in death too, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're grieving a different life, different things. But my experiences have been grieving death and significant people in their lives. So they don't want that. They want me around, right? They still want the conversation. So I guess my next question for you is, how do we help people in that sense, right? Where we know that this person is vulnerable because they are grieving these loss, even if it's years later, how can we show up for them so that they know, hey, I'm safe. I'm safe. And you can be vulnerable in front of me. You can cry and you can hurt and you can still go through this loss with me because I'm safe.
So I think the way that you do it is you can never tell a person that I'm safe.
Yeah.
You can show them. Mm-hmm. And you show them by showing up every time. You show them by being non-judgmental, right? Sometimes with my friends, I'll ask, do you need me to listen? Are you asking for advice? Like I'm asking them.
That's what Amanda said.
Right? Because you have to empower that person. You have to think about a loss is often something beyond your control. Yeah. If you got fired, nobody woke up and said, today I want to be fired. Yeah. Right? Yeah. If you lost your innocence because of abuse or anything, nobody says that they want that. So part of supporting and being there is being consistent and also meeting people where they are and asking them. I don't know why sometimes we're so afraid to just ask.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you need from me today? They might tell you nothing, but if you keep showing up, you keep being consistent, that nothing might turn to, Christina, it would be helpful if we did this, right? So I think consistency, and non-judgment is always going to be, and again, how do I turn this around to empower them, right? Even something simple. And I think the last time we talked, I told you when I train advocates, something as simple as if someone's crying, would you like me to get you a tissue? Don't just run and get it.
Yeah.
Right? Always think about how do I empower this person to have control over even this dynamic of our relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes we come in overkill. I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to protect you. And they might not need that. They might need an ear. They might need to just sit with them in silence. So it's just asking sometimes, how can I show up for you? How can I be myself, best self for you?
Right. What if every time you try to do that, you're kind of just pushed away like, I don't?
Consistency. So this week they tell you ask again next week. I know last week you told me you kick rocks, right? Am I still kicking rocks next week? and eventually when you keep showing up, then they'll soften up. Like, oh, wow, okay, because sometimes people show up for you, but they really need something from themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And then me as a person that's grieving, I can feel that. I'm like, oh, she's only here because of X, Y, and Z. But if you keep showing up consistently, then my wall comes down. You know what? Christina doesn't want anything from me. She's just here for me. But again, you can show that better than you can tell that. Yeah.
I like that saying. Show you better than I can tell you.
I live by that. Yeah. I can show you in good ways or bad. I can show you better than I can tell you.
I've said it in good ways.
I've said it in bad. Like, you keep playing with me if you want to.
She's not playing. She's serious.
Yes, very.
Before we get to the halfway point,
sure.
Is it possible to confuse grief with love or attachment? I ask that, right? Because oftentimes I hear the word trauma bond, right? Mm-hmm. So I trauma bonded with you. Like, I was going through this terrible time and you were the person that made me feel great through this time. And now I'm with you. And then it's years later and it's like, ooh. So is there a possibility that you can confuse grief with love and attachment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that comes from not allowing yourself to heal. So I didn't heal. I feel horrible about myself. You right now make me feel good about myself, but we are not compatible. We don't do anything other than this grief. You're there for me. So now when I'm starting to heal, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I don't really like her as a friend, him as a spouse. You know, it's just when you don't take the time to heal, then that happens. But I'll also share with you that sometimes it might be good, but for the season.
Yeah.
Not for the reason, right? Right now I need you, but when I'm good and healthy and thinking, you know, the trauma is always going to be part of you, but when I'm healing, might not even be compatible. I might not even like you anymore because again, I'm in a different phase of my life. So I think part of it is really healing. And sometimes people don't like to sit in that stillness.
Yeah.
And that, you know, I have family that does that. They go from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next. And I'm like, okay, that's why your next one looks like your last one. And the next one looks like, because you don't get to heal. You don't get to find out what you like. And people are like that. I have people in my family that can't go a week single, right? When we're talking about relationships or, you know, from job to job to job. Like, if you don't take the time to heal, you're going to just keep finding that same job that's exactly like the last one. Yeah. Finding that same friendship that's exactly like the last one. You just keep, if you don't make a change, you keep making the same decisions and then wondering, why do I get the same outcomes? Yeah. The change has to be when you stop and say, I'm going to heal. And healing could be therapy, could be opening up to a friend, could be investing in yourself, going back to school. Like, healing looks so different for everybody, but find out what it is that's going to help you and do more of that.
Yeah. These Latinas with credentials, I tell you, they be giving it to us. Anyway, if you're joining us now at the halfway point, remember, if you or anyone you know is dealing with any form of domestic violence, they can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Doctora, because I got to keep reminding people you got credentials. Doctora Judy.
Yes.
Let's talk about family and childhood grief.
Okay.
How does childhood grief shape the way that we love as adults?
So we learn how to love by the way that we were raised, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're in an abusive relationship, to you, that's what love looks like, right? Mm-hmm. My mom, I was raised in a domestic violence household, and everybody had a cast one week and muletas the next week because of the abuse, right? So it could go in two ways, right? I have a sister that's the way she expresses love. If you're not knocking her upside her head, you don't love her. But me, I'm the total opposite. I know that I didn't want that in life, right? So again, it's a learned behavior. They learn as a kid that if you love somebody, then you have to do this. You have to control, you have to abuse. And that's a learned behavior. No one's born, with that. It's something that you're taught. So the same way we teach love in a healthy relationship, it's taught in unhealthy relationships. And you make that choice. This is what I want for me, or like I did, this is not the life that I want. But not everybody has the power to do that. So again, oftentimes you'll see in abusive relationships, they probably came from that. That's what they learned. It's a learned behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. You're so smart. Oh, my goodness.
Too funny.
Can losing a parent or experiencing abandonment while growing up in an unstable environment affect our relationships later on? Absolutely.
That comes with trust issues. That comes with attachment issues, right? Mm-hmm. If I was never able to make an attachment, that's why if you are looking for a healthy relationship, go and look and see how your person that you're interested in treats their family. How do they treat their mom? How do they treat their dad? That's going to tell you a lot about that person. But also, don't judge them if their mom or dad is abusive, right? Because they might have that distant relationship. But I'm talking about a healthy relationship, and this person is being disrespectful and crazy. Listen to that, right? If someone shows you who they are, believe them. But it does. It just affects the person in being able to form those healthy attachments. Because again, I haven't seen it modeled, so I don't know what healthy looks like, right? Mm-hmm. That's why I made it a point to make sure, as long as I could, that my husband and I were together, because I was raised by a single mom. I didn't want that for my son because I have all kind of daddy issues.
Girl, I love my daddy, but
my poor husband has to suffer through all that because again, all of those things that I didn't have as a kid, sometimes that manifests into adulthood. And then I have to remember, like, this isn't the man that wronged me. This is my husband. He's not my dad. But sometimes he'll be like, oh, there you go. Like, because I'll like snap because of the way I react, because again, I didn't have that father figure. Yeah. So it definitely could contribute in a positive way, but also in a negative way, and in the way that you form relationships. And I see it show up all the time in my relationship. And I'm like, and I got to check myself. Oh, there's some daddy issues again. He didn't do nothing to you. You need to relax. So it shows up in that way. Absolutely.
So I got a question off the cuff.
Sure.
One that we didn't prepare because I was thinking about it as we were talking. My
I
brain
got
was like this. So because of grief that we have suffered in life, right? And I know people are probably like, well, what's the difference between grief and trauma? That's another question, but we'll get there. But because of those types of grief, right? Griefs that like have stayed on my heart. Griefs that are like, damn, again, I wish I would have had this relationship, right? I wish I would have had the household with a father and a mother that were together. And I cry about that because I'm like, damn, I wish I would have seen that growing up, but I didn't. Can all of those different griefs and losses that we feel in life make you overdo it? Like with your children in life, right? And I say this, right? Because I feel like I'm always trying to overcompensate.
Absolutely.
And I realize that. People be telling me I'm obsessed with my child, right? And it's not an obsession. I'm not obsessed with her. I adore her, but I am like focused on making sure that my grief is not the same grief she's feeling. The losses that I feel aren't the losses that she's going to feel. And unfortunately, because life likes to life sometimes,
yes,
she has experienced a lot of the same griefs that I have and a lot of the losses and things like that. But can someone overcompensate because they feel like, I don't want this to happen to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we do overcompensate because we want to make sure that we're protecting our children, that we're protecting our family, and we see signs that they might not see. So absolutely we overcompensate. But to get back to when you were talking about grief and trauma, they can be one and the same. Because if you think about trauma is an experience that overwhelms your senses. Doesn't that sound like grief?
Yeah.
That person died. This overwhelms me. I can't deal with this today. Yeah. So if you think about grief after grief after grief, that becomes trauma after trauma after trauma. That could turn into PTSD. That can turn into clinical issues. And again, we just brush it aside. That happened last month. This happened next year. We don't make the connection that that's all traumatic experiences. Because again, all trauma really is something that overwhelms your senses. Losing a job. Isn't that a little overwhelming?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Losing a relationship. Yes. So again, they're really interrelated, but in different ways, right? Because trauma could also be more than just a loss, right? But it's still that experience that overwhelms your senses. That again, affects your memory, affects the way you learn, affects the way you interact with folks. So it's something that's long lasting. And when you are living in environments that they continue, that just continues to add to your trauma. And to your point, you want to really overprotect. Because of the profession that I'm in and my husband, he's in law enforcement. Oh my God, we smother my poor son. I'm like, I'll pay you for first counseling session, right? Because again, we're overprotective, want to make sure he's okay because we are living our lives. We live in the suburbs now, but my mentality, I was born and raised in North Philadelphia. So I'm like, be careful. Call me when you get here. Because again, it's just who I am, where I was raised, and I can't take that away. So yeah, I think we overcompensate because of our experiences. And depending on what your child is, right? I have my son that he'll listen like, okay, I went through this. I don't want you to go through that. But I also help raise my brothers and they're like, oh, you went through that? Wait, you told me that's hot, that right there? And so some people learn by experiencing it themselves, and we don't have the capacity to allow that because we know what we went through. Whereas others learn by just us sharing our experiences. So that overcompensation comes when we can't just chill, right? Like, I want to stop them so bad from dealing with this that I overstep.
Yeah.
And we got to let them be, and they have to learn the same way we learned. And And boy, is that difficult.
She learning.
Yes. And like you said, life be life.
But she's learning. Life definitely be life.
Yes.
So in the matter of love, right? Because people deal with so much grief and it's like hard to love. What happens when people have gone through so much grief, ridiculous grief? They've lost a parent, they've lost a sibling, they've lost like death type grief, right? Because there's so many people that I've interacted with, friends, family, just different people in my life who have dealt with a grief, right? I know that for me, when my grandmother died 6 years ago, my grandmother, anybody that knows me knows she was my life.
Yes, I do know that.
My mother was in the household and my mother raised me. Take away nothing from her. I adore my mother. But my grandmother taught me how to cook. She taught me how to speak Spanish. She taught me all of the Hispanic things. She's my culture embedded in me, right? When my grandmother died, I didn't want to date anyone. I didn't want to deal with anyone. I didn't want to be around anyone because it felt like my entire world collapsed when she died. Of course. And it's been 6 years and I still mourn her death as if it just happened. And I know a lot of people experience that, but what happens when people suffer that type of grief, like a death, and they just feel like I'm never going to date again? I just can't do it because they feel like that loss was so strong. They can't give love to anyone.
I think that's when you do what you're doing already, right? Go to counseling, try to talk about that, because again, until you heal, then it's not fair even to another person to try to start a relationship. But the good news is you can heal, right? The good news is it might take some time, but you also got to think about what type of counselor you're going to, right? Because if you're just going to whatever, and you're not dealing with the trauma and the grief, then that's just like putting a Band-Aid over it, right? So I always recommend to people that when you're looking for a therapist, look up their credentials. Are they trauma informed, right? Because even if you're talking about alcoholism, drug, issues, if you're not dealing with the issue at hand, right? What's making me take drugs are usually you're masking a pain of some kind of trauma. So if you're not taking care of the trauma, so I'll get you off of these drugs, and guess what happens? You go back and you get back on the drugs because you didn't deal with the pain of the trauma. So if you don't get the right therapist, then sometimes you're just putting a Band-Aid on it. I feel really good when I'm talking to you, but here this comes back and resurfaces. And you're right. Grief is forever. You're going to always mourn birthdays and holidays and, anything that reminds you of that loved one, right? So how do you still leave space for that, right? That you can still honor and love that person while you honor and love yourself and possibly honor and love someone else, right? That's a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes we feel guilty, like, oh no, this love was just for my grandma or just for this person or that person. So it's all about healing. I mean, there's no easy way through it, but to go through it. And I think with the help of the right therapist, because that's the other thing too, is that we get like stuck. Even when it's bad, like, nope, that's my therapist. No. You need to quit them like a bad relationship and find somebody.
Bye.
Yes, bye. Find somebody that's healthy for you. But it's all about healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this sense, because I think it's important for my audience and the people who watch, right?
Sure.
We're focusing on domestic violence. So I want to focus on a domestic violence question. But what would you say to someone who feels broken because of everything that they lost? In the sense of domestic violence, right? So let me pose it differently.
Sure.
How can grief impact a survivor's ability to trust or love again after their abuse?
So it does impact, right? As we talked about, tonight, it impacts the way you show up, and the way that you allow others to show up. So it all goes back to healing. If you don't take the time to heal, you're not going to be able to get into a healthy relationship. And you'll find that time after time after time, you keep attracting the same kind of person because you haven't stopped to, even when you're in a domestic violence situation, there are still those times, the honeymoon phase, that things feel good. Yeah. So oftentimes you'll keep looking for those times that feel good and ignore all the other signs, right? Because it's not always physical abuse. It could be emotional abuse. It could be financial abuse, right? And sometimes we even excuse that. Oh, they're not hitting me, so it's okay. It's not. You should never settle. You should always demand the best for yourself. You should always give the best of yourself. But I think it all comes back to healing. And if you don't take that time, you're doing a disservice to yourself and to whoever you're in that relationship with.
Why do people grieve someone who hurt them?
Because you still have that relationship. Good, bad, or indifferent. You still have that relationship, right? And then sometimes you think about it, when you're in a domestic violence relationship, that person chips away at you, chips away at your self-esteem, chips away at the person you are, sometimes isolates you from other people. That's the only person you had for however long you stayed in that situation. How would you not grieve that? Good, bad, or indifferent, you're still going to grieve it. Like, wow, this feels too normal. This feels too quiet, all of that. And sometimes we don't allow ourselves to do that, right? We feel guilty, like, oh, I should be happy that I'm out of that bad relationship. It still was a relationship. So you still have to grieve it.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, you and Amanda, and I'm like, we could be here for 5 hours.
How about
listening to their stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like fighting between two questions.
Okay.
Why do people grieve someone that hurt them was my first one, right?
Right.
But why do survivors of domestic violence continue to grieve that person, even when they move on into other relationships, right? I'll tell you why, right? Because I have left horrendous relationships. My physical abuse, I went through an entire wall. If you can think of those Tom and Jerry cartoons back in the day where they put the entire cat through the wall, I was through a wall. My entire body was like through a wall, right?
Right.
And after I left him years later, I still got into other relationships, but I still missed him.
Right.
And I knew how abusive he was.
Right.
And I knew that 6 years of my life were terrible.
Right.
But I still grieved that relationships and being with that man.
Right.
Why?
I think it's because of the attachment. Healthy or unhealthy, you still had an attachment. So, again, detaching from that, still you grieve that. And you still, and our brain wants things to be better. So you imagine, how could this relationship have been if they didn't, right? Even though we know they're still going to do it, even though you said, how many years you stayed there or how many years you've been apart, that was still a relationship that you had, right? And you still, we can't help but want a better relationship, right? So my dad was horrible. But I always wanted that relationship. So time and time again, maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe this time he'll respect me. Maybe this time he'll love me as a daughter. Yeah. And he's deceased. May he rest in peace. But he never did anything for me. But till this day, I still grieve what a good relationship could have been. So that could be why you still have that attachment with that thought of, wow, especially like you're talking about, I would like to be married. I would like to this. I would like to that. So your brain already says, wow, if that was the person, could I have done that with him? So I think it's still the attachment. Yeah.
What does healing look like after losing yourself in a relationship?
Healing looks like one step at a time. Healing looks like every day I do a little bit better, right? So if I'm really battered, if I'm really suffering the loss of whoever, job, mom, son leaving, daughter leaving, it's every day gets a little better. And that's what healing is. So today might be, I got out of bed. Wow, look at me. I'm doing something, right? Whereas in a week might be, I accept the phone calls, right? So I think it's always progressing, that you don't stay in that same place. Even when I was an advocate and I worked at the DA's office, some of the things that I would tell people is, guess what? You got to go back to work, right? Allow yourself time to grieve. I would act, as ridiculous as it sounds, I would tell people to schedule time to grieve. Yeah. You know that you got to go to work. You know that you got to take care of the kids. 8 o'clock, break down, right? And then that gave them something to look forward to. Wow, I got to get through this day. But at 8 o'clock, I'm going to allow myself to go to the bathroom and break down.
Oh, wow.
Right? And then maybe that breakdown is every day. Then it's twice a week. Then it's every other week, right? So you're looking for progression. And that's the key to getting yourself out of that. How can I be good to myself a little bit at a time?
Damn, Judy, I needed you a few times in my life, because I could have used some moment to say, all right, because you know what's funny is that trying to grieve through what you're going through raising a child is hard, right? Because you can't stop and be like, okay, I need to be sad right now. I need to cry. I need to get over this. Because you got a baby in the next room that you got to pick up. You know how many times through these abusive relationships where, and different phases of her life, right, as she grew, that I just got, smacked by my boyfriend, and she was a toddler, so she's in the other room sleeping. I had to just like wipe my face when he walked out and just, Mommy, I want to eat and I'm hungry. And I'd have to be like, okay, Mama, come on, and put on that excited face. Right. But I knew inside I was ready to die. Like I was ready to cry. This man just beat me, but because my 3-year-old is here, I can't. And then as she got older and she was more aware, she was a teenager, right? And I'm like, all right, she cannot see what I saw growing up. She cannot understand this. So I would fake the funk with her. And the craziness is she knew.
Right.
She knew. Once she realized it, when she was older, she was like, I knew. I could hear you crying and I would hear you upset. And I'm like,
yeah, we think we're doing a great job, but they always know.
I thought I was doing a great job.
We all do. Hiding anything, right? Whatever you're going through with your spouse or your partner, you know, the kids know. Kids are very intuitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, we're winding down and we're getting to the end of the show.
Yes.
I only have like 2 more questions and then I have a powerful question that I want you to close off and kind of give a message to everyone. But one of the questions.
Let's do it.
What are some myths about grief that society gets wrong?
That you need to get over it, that there's a time frame, that there's a certain thing that you can grieve, right? Again, we started by talking about grief and the fact that jobs expect you to do only 3 days. Family and friends are the same. You know, they criticize and she need to get over it. He need to get over it. No, they need to do what they need to do to take care of themselves. So I think the biggest myth is that you just get over stuff, because guess what? If my mom, God bless her, something happens to her, you talk to me in 20 years and I'm going to still be feeling that grief. So I think the idea is that when you're healing, you want to move from that grief defining you to just being a part of who you are. So you're not Christina, the victim of domestic violence. You're Christina, the survivor who experienced domestic violence.
Absolutely.
So I think that people have to allow time and space for people to grieve, and we don't do that. We give you like a good week, and then you're on my nerves.
Ja.
Go ahead there, because what's going on?
Let's go.
Yes.
I love it. What advice would you give someone who feels stuck in their grief?
Love yourself. Redefine yourself.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
And allow for the right people to support you. I think I shared with you before, I treat every relationship like a bank account. How many deposits are you making? How many withdrawals are you making? When all you're doing is making withdrawals, I need to close your account. And people have to feel comfortable with that. Yes. People have
to put that as a side note on the side.
People don't feel comfortable with ending relationships. And I'll tell you, I don't care if you're my friend, my family, I will cut you so quick. And I can still love you. I can love you from a distance. And people don't do that. People think that I have to accept this because it's my mom. I have to accept this because it's my dad. I will cut you so quick. But again, I can love you from afar. It doesn't mean that you're not my sister, brother. Yeah. It just means that you're too toxic. That's not contributing to me, and I need to move on. So I treat everything, a job, a relationship. If all you're making is withdrawals, it's time to close your account. It's just that simple for me.
You heard that, people. There might be some people in your life, you got to close their account.
That's right.
You are hilarious.
Absolutely.
So since we're talking about grief and how it coincides with love,
right?
What's one thing you wish everyone understood about grief and how it coincides with love?
So I think grief is natural, right? And it happens to all of us in different ways. And I think love can be natural. So I think that it's different for everybody. When we try to define grief, again, we try to give you a timeline. We try to give you what it looks like to grieve. When we talk about love, we try to, talk about what love should look like. We got so many movies that show us and romanticize, and it's not always like that, right? So I think it's knowing yourself, and allowing yourself to grieve. Don't go by people's timeline. People's timelines are so unrealistic. Yeah. If something happens to my loved ones, you can miss me with 3 days. You can miss me with a couple months. I know that life has to go on, but it's going to be very different for me. Yeah, and you know me, I'm always smiling. I can't imagine that I would be able to do that through grief.
Absolutely.
So I think we just have to forgive ourselves. We don't allow, because society wants us to get over things so quickly, we internalize that. Mm-hmm. And then we think something's wrong with me when it's 2 weeks and I'm not ready to go back to work. Yeah. Right? So I think that love and grief can look the same, right? Yeah. Healthy and or unhealthy. Yeah. So I think it's just about, how do I get through this in the best way for me? And even in love, you might be the most amazing person, but not for me. Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah, that's all, and that's hard for people to get.
Absolutely.
I've been there where I'm like, I'm such a good woman. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. What's the problem? I'm just not.
Or the opposite. Yeah. This person is so amazing. Like, why am I not compatible? My friends think he's amazing. And they look at you like, you're going to leave them there? That's a catch. And no, you have to be the bigger fish, the bigger catch.
To say, it's not
this is not for me. Yeah, you are an amazing person.
I've done that.
But this isn't for me. Yeah.
I've said that.
And that's amazing. That's good.
I did that. My most recent breakup, And I say that all the time when people ask about him. He was a good guy. He's a good guy. He's a really, really good guy. He just isn't my guy.
For you.
Right? And it's hard to say that. He's such an amazing person. And I wanted it for so long because I want that, right? I want to be married. I want to have that family. I want this future, you know, even if I just get a 10-year anniversary, because I'll probably be 60 by the time I find my man. But
he's out there. He's out there.
Tell him que ya the clock is ticking.
Avanza.
But he's a good guy, but he wasn't a guy for me.
Not for
and
you.
I think that in itself showed how healthy I've become.
I
Because
love
in
that.
the past, I would have stayed and been unhappy just to make other people happy, right? When I broke up with him, my family was like, he's such a good guy. Oh my God, he's handsome. He's good to you. Like, ¿qué más tú quieres?
Right.
Right.
That's
And I
right.
used to tell my mom, you date him.
That's right.
Like,
That's right. He's so good you can have him, right?
Yeah. And it
But
wasn't.
that does show your journey in healing.
Yeah.
That you said, nope, he's not the right guy for me. And that's the absolute right thing to do.
Yeah.
Yep. And I love that for you.
Girl.
And the right guy is out there somewhere.
Y ahora por eso estoy sola.
Well, you know why? Sometimes we think we're doing a good job at picking the person and we don't pick
Yeah.
the right person.
Yeah.
We need to go back to some of those countries where the parents pick your spouse, right?
Right.
Because they know
I
us.
don't know about that. I don't know about that. I might have to let my daughter pick my spouse. I don't know about my parents. Because my mom will pick one popo just because he's nice to me.
Because he's nice to you.
Jeez. And I'll be like, Mom. But anyway.
But yeah,
All right.
be good to yourself in grief. Be good to yourself in love. If it doesn't feel right, then it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And don't let anyone else's timeline dictate your healing.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah. I love that. I hope whoever is watching out there felt immense joy or emotions, whatever you needed to feel tonight by this conversation. I know that there's a lot of people who are dealing with so many forms of grief right now in life, and they're trying to figure out, how do I maneuver this obstacle right now through your life? Believe me, it can happen. I know that I have dealt with tons of grief throughout my life, but I think that my journey, even though it has been crazy, has led me to a very safe and healthy place. So I hope that you felt that tonight. Judy, I am going to let you close us out, but I have a question for you, or kind of like I'm charging you to do something, right?
All right.
To my audience.
Where's my call to action?
Yeah, it is. If someone is watching tonight and feels like their grief has stolen their ability to love, what message would you want them to hear before we end the show tonight?
I think that your grief has not stolen your ability to love. I think you have to go back. You might be tired. You might be guarded. You might be afraid. But the capacity to love is still there. We don't lose that, right? We forget about it. It's like that muscle memory, right? You don't have to rush to healing. You don't have to pretend you're okay. Yeah. If you are around people that you have to pretend you're okay, then you need to reevaluate that circle, right? So I think that there is potential for love. Be gentle with yourself. Surround yourself with people that love you. I think I shared with you before, all of the people that my son calls aunt and uncle are friends.
Yeah.
Because I chose people that show up for him. He does have family and he loves them too, aunts and uncles, but a lot of them are friends. Yeah. Because I made sure that I surrounded him with that love. You need to do that for yourself. We often think that it has to be a family member. Most of the times it's not, right? So seek safe support. Look for somebody that's loving you in a healthy way. Yeah. Even if you're unhealthy, look for that healthy behavior in someone else, because that can help you to change. So you're healing is possible. You're not alone. You just have to find that right people. And even if it's not family, find someone that you can trust, and that can help you on that journey. And it might even be a therapist, right? You are still capable of loving somebody and you deserve to be loved.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Judy,
Absolutely.
for being here with me
It's
tonight.
my pleasure.
I love it. I love, like I said with Amanda, I love my ladies with credentials, my Latinas. Thank you guys for watching, for being here again. You guys have supported us for over 6 years doing this, and I'm just tremendously grateful for all of you. I hope that our message tonight touched your heart in some way. And listen, stay tuned for episode 3 of our What's Love Got to Do with series, because the next one will be just as enlightening. Thank you. As always, besos y abrazos. Hasta la próxima.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Stay tuned for our next episode.